Good afternoon, ladybugs and yellow jackets. Welcome to this Friday's episode of Author Reads here on Fae Productions. I am your host, Fairy Princess Lolly. Glad to be back with you guys this week. And so I first want to say, I want to, get our obligatory things out of the way. You can sign up for VirtYULE, which we will be doing on December 19th. It's going to be a live event that we're doing here on Saturday. Sign up for it. Even if you can't be here, we're sending out Christmas cards to everybody who signs up. You can participate in our Yule Cat sock exchange, which is basically like a Secret Santa, except more awesome because it's Yule Cat. And we are also burning a Yule log. We're doing a bunch of different things. You can participate in as many or as few of them as you like. That is the link right there. It is also in the low bar. Go there, sign up. We want you all. We want you all to come celebrate with us, and this is kind of one of those safe ways to do that, considering, right? Also, Yule Cat is very 2020. I mean, the legend is if you don't get a piece of clothing for Christmas, then Yule Cat comes and eats you. So that seems very fitting for this year. So also, please click like, subscribe. Please ring the bell if you want to get notifications of our future shows. Our next one will be here day after tomorrow, Handmade Home Shopping. And then that kind of resets us back to Fae News again on Wednesday. But we do 3 shows a week. Hit the bell if you want to get the notifications for those. And if you want to be entered into every single drawing automatically that we do on all of our shows, you can join our Patreon, and that at any level, and that will get you auto entry, regardless of whether or not you happen to have been there to watch the show, etc. So do those things. And with that, I will give a shout out to today's show sponsor, who is Spirit Fire and Dew, and they actually have been here on Handmade Home Shopping in the past. It is a store that is run by Kelly Turnbull, and they make fine silver and whimsical polymer clay jewelry, handmade with love. They are local artists, actually, here, as far as I know, here in the Northwest, and they do have custom options available. Oh, my nose is doing a little thing. Excuse me. Whew. Okay. So they do have custom options available, and right now you can get 25% off your entire order through December if you use the coupon code WINTER, WINTER. So 25% off using the code WINTER, and I will attest their work is actually quite beautiful. How they do things, working with silver and real plants and making their molds. This is one of those good quality gifts, the like necklaces and things like that to buy. So I really do like their work, and I thank them for sponsoring the show today. So with that said, we will now move into the actual meat, the heart of why we are here this afternoon, and welcome Stephen. Is it Radecki?
Radecki, very good. Very good.
Okay. Stephen Radecki, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You are most welcome. If you will, please just give a little introduction to our audience. Tell us who you are and where you're from. Maybe give a shout out to any of your home shows or conventions, and right. Let's hear about what you write.
So my name is Stephen Radecki, as she said. I grew up in Southern California and then moved to Northern California many years ago. I'm a technical writer by trade and a project manager in terms of my day job when I'm not authoring and doing other things. I've been seriously writing and getting rejection letters since I was about 17. I have a nice stack of, rejections from notable places like Analog and Omni and all the good places, some of which are no longer around. But I've been trying for a long time.
I'm just... Yeah. I just was thinking about that, like having a stack of rejection letters, which I know that in the industry as it is, it's not uncommon to get just rejected by big publishing houses, and that's one of the reasons a lot of authors go and do indie work, which frankly I kind of love, because then it's off the beaten path a little bit, and that's kind of why that's premise of this show, because that's what I like. So, but I was just thinking, gosh, if I had a big old stack of rejection letters, eventually it would become comical, right? Just like into the file or whatever. And then I started with, like you were just saying, and this is all happened in my head. I'm like, what would I do if I had a big stack of rejection letters, right? What would I do to kind of maybe I would put it up on a wall and play darts with them. Right?
Well, it's kind of sad because I actually still have them all, but
wait till you become famous, like Neil Gaiman or something, and then write them letters, and then with like a photocopy of their rejection letter.
I love it.
I don't know, like there could be use to this that in the long term, right? So anyway, enough about that and my crazy brain.
No, you actually bring up a good point, because that segues into that whole rejection process is for those authors who have received them. Also, those letters are frequently unhelpful. Yeah,
they don't offer you anything to improve.
Like, okay,
they're just like,
did it just suck? Did you, whatever. And actually, as a quick tangent, that is actually the impetus that caused us to create Paper Angel Press. So I'm also the fiction editor for Paper Angel Press.
Well,
so
tell us a little bit about that.
Pardon?
Tell us a little bit about Paper Angel Press.
So when I finally finished Building Baby Brother, for those of you who have not read it, it's actually not novel length. It's actually only about 29,000 words.
So more like a novella.
Yeah, more like a novella. And it was difficult finding a market for it, because I've been working on it for a number of years, and it was like, well, I don't want to cut it down to 10,000 because then I have to leave all this stuff out. Mm-hmm. And to try to turn it into a novella means bloating it with all this stuff that's kind of like, no, I'm happy with the way it is. So it was like, well, you know what? I'm just going to, I also did the math. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, if I find a market for it, whether it was, Clark's World or whomever, they'll pay me this much. Right. But if I publish it myself and I can sell N copies, then I can make this much. Right. And I don't remember what the numbers were, but I
take your meaning here. I get where you're going with it.
So it's like, okay, so I'm going to do it myself. Well, I discovered that there are a lot of other people I know that were kind of in the same boat. Either they had short work or they had longer work that had been rejected, but they were kind of like, why? Right. So, well, you know what? As they used to do in the old, movie musicals, let's start a show. So we said, well, let's just create our own press and do it ourselves. And it really started as the idea of it being kind of a cooperative, where we published books, but we all worked together to help promote them and get them into conventions and get them into to shows and help sell them, all of that.
Everybody kind of shared various duties.
Shared those pieces of it, yeah. So
there it is. Well, author tables are a thing too. We were talking about that with a previous author about how it's just better to have one or two of your authors at the author table and shake the hands and sign the books. Yeah. I personally like that, so I can agree.
Yeah, no, and that's definitely part of the thing, and that's part of. I know we're probably way off topic, but that's one of the ways in which the pandemic has really hurt us. Is indie authors and indie presses, that their big sell is at the conventions, where people can walk by and they can meet the author, and they take pity on us and they buy our books. And
I mean, I guess probably for somebody out there, that's what they're doing, but that is not true for me. I love all the books.
But my point being is, it's a chance to, meet the author, and that's exactly what we would do. We would, we'd have one table, but we'd have maybe over the course of the weekend, 4 or 5 of us who just rotate through. So you had a chance of meeting somebody, but all the books were there and you could meet the author and you could talk to them. Or if you had a pitch, this was the other thing we were doing. If you had a pitch, you could come see me and, tell me your idea.
And for getting published through you.
Right. Well, just in general, did it sound like something that we would be interested in? If not, we would also give them advice on, possible other markets that might be better.
And so what kind of genres do you cover then at Paper Angel?
Therein hangs a tale.
A
Right
tale
now,
from an author? No.
Pardon?
A tale from an author?
Yeah, I know, right? It was actually a hot summer's day in July, not a dark and stormy night. No, actually, right now, we kind of do everything. We have science fiction and fantasy, and we have mystery, and we have historicals. We just published a memoir.
Oh, cool.
We have, I know I'm leaving out a genre in here somewhere.
Romance?
Anyway, pardon?
Romance? Young adult?
No, we don't do, some of our fantasy are young adult audience, but we don't strictly market them as young adult. We also have a nonfiction line of self-help books.
Oh, okay, cool.
And we have the imprint for that is Unruly Voices. Unruly Voices. But next year we're going to more formally break it out in separate imprints to make it a little bit easier to market.
And now, where are you from? I don't know if I don't feel like did you tell us?
I'm out of San Jose.
Okay, so you're West Coast.
Yeah, West Coast. So we've been at BayCon. We were at the WorldCon that was here. We were at the WorldCon in San Antonio
it was in Texas a couple of years back, right?
That was actually by happy accident because I timed a business trip that happened to fall that weekend.
Sounds like a fun business trip.
Yeah, it's like, well, if you could send me that week, I'll cover the cost of the.
So now tell us a little bit. No, it's okay. Tell us a little bit about the books that because you're reading from more than one today. So tell us a little bit about the books that you're going to be reading from this afternoon.
Okay. So the first one is going to be Building Baby Brother, which is one we kind of talked about.
Right.
That's actually a novella. That one started originally as the school. I'm trying to remember. It was either elementary or junior high school that my son was going to at the time. They had wanted to do some programs to foster literacy and creativity. So they were going to have this event where they were asking the families, the parents and the kids to write short stories, and they were going to do an event in the cafeteria where everybody would read like a 10 to 15 minute short story and talk about how, discuss it and how to write and do things like that. And I thought, who could pass up an opportunity like that? A chance to write and a captive audience, right?
Right.
And probably, snacks. So the original goal was, okay, I can do a 2,000 word short story. I can knock that off in a weekend or two, no problem.
Yeah.
So I started the story, and I ended the weekend. It was about 2,400 words. I thought, okay, I can, as I read, I can leave out, the adjectives or something. But I wasn't done, so it kept going. And suddenly it was 10,000 words and then 12,000 words. And it was like, okay, well, I'll read a 2,000 word excerpt.
There you go.
The event. And the story kept going. And then they canceled the event.
And now you had book material.
Yeah, I had book material. So it's like, I'm going to finish the story. Heck with it. So, over the next several weekends, I cranked it out. But that's actually what started it. The idea was that, okay, I wanted a 2,000 word short story that had kind of a Twilight Zone-ish kind of feel to it, but something that people could relate to, because I wanted some kind of little cute twist at the end. So that survived all of the edits. So my original ending is still in it somehow. But so that's the genesis of this book.
I like that you used the word genesis right there, given what the book is about. Yeah. That's a good word. So the next book is, or the anthology.
So the anthology is called Corpus Catharsis, and this was actually an idea that Lorene Hudson, who's my co-editor. Hi, Lorene, if you're out there.
Hi, Lorene.
When we originally decided that we were going to formalize Paper Angel Press, it was actually going to be our premiere book. Except it took us almost 5 years to actually produce it. Because we had this concept of a collection of short stories by which we could purge ourselves of our corporate experiences through literature. How's that for a diplomatic way of putting it?
That was, in fact, a very diplomatic. I feel that I can relate to this as a fairy. I once was trapped in the horrible land of Cubeville in the country of Corporatelandia, and I had to make my break and escape. And now here I am, trapped in this box on a screen. No.
There you go. See, right? So when we originally started People Press, we were going to do this anthology. That was part of this. Was going to be like one of our keystone works that we were going to kind of launch with, but it ended up taking us almost 5 years to actually.
The magnum opus? Is that what that's called?
No. It was what's the word I'm looking for? Bad author. No biscuit.
Fundamental foundation.
No.
There's a specific word.
There's a word, and it'll come to me like 10 minutes from now.
That's okay, but when it does, you have to tell us what it is, right? You just have to be like, oh, because now I want to hear it.
Because I can't think of the word. Anyway, so finally last year, pretty much a year ago. No, last year it came out. So it came out November 1st last year. So that January, we finally officially said, we're going to do it. Let's put a call for submissions, and let's do it. And so, we went through the whole process of getting submissions and put it together and published it last November.
And so is there a theme to the anthology?
So the main theme is just dealing with corporate experiences in kind of fantastical ways.
Okay.
We've got there's a vast variety of different stories. We've got one that's horror. We've got two that are science fiction. We've got one that is essentially contemporary fiction, which is mine. Mine really doesn't have any fantastical elements. When we get to mine, I'll tell you the whole impetus for that one.
I am a little curious. Yeah. So you said you were a technical writer in your day job. How does that affect your author writings?
I think that I think in my first drafts it tends to make me a bit verbose. I feel the need to describe everything. Because when you're documenting a product, you need to tell them how everything works, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
in big crayons.
Right. Exactly. Which you don't always kind of want to do in a novel.
That makes sense, actually.
So I think that's an impact. So a lot of that gets cut out during future drafts. I also think it tends to make me, during the writing process, I tend to be much more structured than I think other authors might be, because I'm so used to having to fit into a box. But one of the things that I do during Nanowrimo, I assume everybody knows Nanowrimo.
Well, if they don't, I know what Nanowrimo is, but Nanowrimo is in the month of November, you endeavor to meet a writing goal every single day of the month, right? Is that it?
Trying to reach a goal of 50,000 words by the end of the month. 50,000
words by the end. Okay. Close. I was close.
Yeah. Well, to do that, you do need to write a certain number of words each day. So, yeah.
Right.
You're essentially right. So, yes, November is National Novel Writing Month. We just got through it. I hit my goal this year.
Hey, congratulations on that.
But so one of the things I do during Nano, though, is I don't do that. I completely what they call pants it. All I start with is an idea, like with this year's, that will probably never see the light of day.
I'm a good person to use that word, pants it, which I mean, somebody used that word a month ago, and I'm like, what does that mean? And they told me that it means essentially that you write by the seat of your pants.
Yeah, that's exactly what it means.
So that's totally hilarious.
Yeah, so November, I give myself the freedom to do that. I'll usually have like a scene in mind that I'll start with, and then kind of see where it goes from there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what I did this year. And it just kind of like, okay, I knew I had this situation, and I was going to, okay, what can I do with it?
it's probably good to get you to break out of your box, though. Although that box, my thought there, and I'm just going to, after this, we'll get to the reading part. But I was thinking, there are some authors that it seems like might be very helpful to them, because one of the problems of writing is ideas go everywhere. And it's sometimes hard to get them. And you actually kind of have that skill because of your day job, that you can herd the cats, right? You can herd the mental cats. So I guess with everything, there's the trade-off, right? There's the pros and the cons. So, okay, well, so we will move on to the portion where you get to read from your books to everybody. And for those of you watching out there at home, I am going to go on mute, and I am going to give the whole screen to Stephen while he reads, but I will be in the comment section. And so you guys, if you have questions or comments, things you want to, ask, or if you just want to give some props or whatever, please do so. And then when he is done reading, we'll come back and we will talk about the questions that you guys have, and he can answer them. At the very end of the show, we are going to do a giveaway. And so stick around for that. And then I think with that said, are you ready to read?
I'm ready.
All right, here you go, sir. I am going to give you the whole screen, and I'm on mute now.
Building Baby Brother, Chapter 1. Dad, can I have a baby brother? I paused, still holding the Lego piece in my hand. Are you sure you want one? I tried to sound casual about it. You know you'd have to help take care of him, and he'd be in your toys. I know, Dad. Josh gave me an exasperated look. We'd been through all this before. It wasn't that I necessarily wanted to deprive Josh of the sibling experience. I'd been through it myself. But I also knew that it wasn't all playtime and brotherly love. Okay, Josh, I said, turning to face him. It's your choice. You can have a baby brother or too many toys. Yeah, I admit it. It was kind of a cheap shot, but it was a whole lot easier than explaining the real reason. Before answering, Josh took a quick look around his bedroom. He surveyed his collections of Lego sets, action figures, and the stacks of video game discs. Too many toys, he finally announced, nodding firmly in confirmation. With that decided, he turned his attention back to our current construction project, snapping a new piece into place. Whew, I thought, dodge that bullet again. Later that night, after finally getting Josh to bed, I settled myself at my desk with the intent to pay the bills and deal with the other household-related record keeping. Glancing at the clock, I saw that it was quite a bit later than I'd hoped. I considered putting off all those tedious chores for just one more night, but knew that there was no guarantee that tomorrow night would be any better than this one. The odds were that it was unlikely to be. It's amazing how many excuses and other delaying tactics young children will resort to rather than simply closing their eyes and going to sleep. It's probably not quite as astonishing, though, as when you look away for a moment, only to turn back to find their head against the pillow and their breathing steady and slow. Might as well get it done, I encouraged myself, barely succeeding in fighting back a yawn. Most of these people do like to be paid on time. It's strange, but when I'm working, I usually prefer to be quiet. At night, though, and when tackling these kinds of tasks, I find a little background noise comforting, just something playing at low volume so I'd be able to hear Josh if he needed me. I wasn't really in the mood for music, so I turned on the small television that sat on the low cabinet across from my desk. The screen lit up with a graphic and bloody scene from an episodic police procedural. Ugh, I can catch the late news if I want to see that. I changed the channel. Again. And then again. Fairly quickly, I despaired of finding any programming that was not an overly gritty adult drama or a talk show host chatting about the latest geopolitical happenings with sparkling celebrities who had also dropped in to discuss their latest motion picture, television series, concert tour, stint in rehab, or any other combination of the above. My fingers paused on the remote control when I caught sight of a small, doe-eyed boy moving through a blue-tinged darkness across a moonlit hillside. I recognized it as a scene from Kubrick's last science fiction movie. Well, it wasn't among my favorites, neither was it among the worst, and I hadn't really planned to watch it anyway. It might have been avoidance behavior or simply fatigue, but my mind kept drifting when it was supposed to be keeping track of which payments I'd already made. I tried to focus on my balances due, but my eyes and attention kept wandering back to the images on the television screen. I watched the small artificial boy move across the scenery, and I began to wonder if it was really possible to create something like him. Creating the software to do it, that I could imagine. That's my day job. I plan and develop computer programs. I try to make the hardware do what the clients want it to produce the results that they want from it. I don't typically design or build the actual circuitry or components. I leave that to the electrical and mechanical engineers. I was certain that I could never construct a cybernetic being as complex as the one I was seeing on the screen. By the time I finally went to bed, though, I found that I was still thinking about it, unable to banish the notion from my thoughts. I tried telling myself that there were technological and financial realities to consider, ones that would make such a project almost impossible for me to achieve alone. After being unsuccessful in wholly silencing the persistent voice in my head, I finally decided that only thinking about the notion would cost me nothing. Well, other than perhaps the price of a loss of a little sleep and a few unusual dreams. So I closed my eyes and let my mind see how far it could go with the idea. It was still working the idea the next morning, and after I had dropped Josh off at school, I began to realize that not only might it be possible, but it might also be practical, using only off-the-shelf components. With a large number of computer stores in the area, I thought it might be possible to get everything I might need. If I couldn't find it at one of the shops, I had several friends who worked for some of the major computer and chip companies. They could probably get their hands on whatever else I might need. So I began mentally composing a proposed shopping list: motherboards, memory, hard drives, etc. Well, I suffer from no delusions that what I might create would be anywhere near as complex as what I'd seen in that movie, or from any movie for that matter. I had, in the span of one evening, gone from "that's impossible" to how hard could it be? Well, a lot harder than I thought it turned out. Much harder. And that is chapter 1 from Building Baby Brother.
Shall we let you go on to the next one, or did you want to pause here?
Should we pause for a moment in case there's anything else to talk about?
Sure, we can't. Excuse me, we can if you want. Let me pull us back together. We normally do all the questions at the end, but that is either way I think works fine. Let me see what we have here. We have a comment. No questions yet, though, at this point. So we have Ryan says impossible projects are the best kind.
Kind of like writing novels.
I am curious, though, what your you gotta get to the end. You have to do that. I'm curious what your relationship is with actual AI. If you have any, is it just a passing interest?
I have not worked directly with it. It's not like directly in my field. The company I work for is actually network security, so not quite the same thing. But it's definitely something I've done research about and am vastly interested in. It was also, the book is also, without hopefully doing any spoilers, it was also my attempt to subvert some of the cliches in science fiction about AIs and artificial life forms, and it seems like a lot of them make certain assumptions, and it's like, okay, what if those weren't true?
So we do. Okay, so here are some questions, and so we'll bring them. Butterfly McCree says, "How long did it take to get from notion to the finished book?"
Which time? So so the original process that I described, I'm going to say, was about 9 weeks.
9 weeks.
I think it was
this is the
9
one
weeks.
this is the one that started with the school.
Yeah. I'm going to say I think the original to get to that final draft was about 9 weeks, and then I kind of sat on it for a while for various reasons, just because life and and other things. And then when we started Paper into Press, I said, well, I should actually probably publish my own book as well, some point in here. But I think that process only took about 2 months to kind of do another edit through it, because one of the things that kept it in the drawer, because you don't put it on the shelf till it's published. So kept it in the
don't
drawer.
Put it on the burner.
Right. Kept it in the drawer was that challenge I talked about earlier was, I didn't want to cut out of it and I didn't want to pad it. So what do I do with it? And then once I knew I had a market for it, it became easier, because then it was just a polishing job. It wasn't what do I need to take out to fit this page length, or what do I need to add to make this other word count? It was, okay, this is what it's going to be. Let's just clean it up so it's publishable. But that process probably took about 2 months.
Okay.
But again, I mean, your mileage may vary, and it is only 29,000 words. So if you're writing 90,000, it's going to take longer.
Right, significantly longer. So 90,000 is a lot of words. So let's see here. How about this one? Do you have an interest in quantum or theoretical sciences outside of AIs, and does that play into your books?
I definitely have an interest in both of those, and no, they don't play into this particular book.
Not this one, but possibly others?
Well, there's...
Possibly spoiler alert?
No, possibly others. I say that because one day I'm going to finish the space opera series that I'm working on, and some of these do crop up in those.
Gotcha.
But they do not appear in this one, and not in the sequel. That isn't out finished yet. But
there's a sequel to that book?
There's a sequel that I've been working on for 3 years.
Okay, so with that said, then we will let you move on to the next book, and we'll take questions about the next story.
Okay.
And this one is the aggressive negotiations from the anthology Corporate Catharsis.
Right. Do you want me to give the impetus for this one before or after?
Yeah, tell us a little bit about what it is we're about to hear from, and then just jump right in.
So this was actually, this story really had 2 lives.
Okay.
has 2 lives. It actually, when I was working for another software company that is no longer in existence, but its brand is still around, and that's all I'm going to say. It was during a period when a lot of companies were laying off people. And we had lost like 20% of our workforce, and they called us all down into the auditorium.
Yikes.
To do they'd already let all those people go, and they called us down to let us know what was happening. But it really kind of turned into the execs all kind of congratulating themselves on how they've now sized us for growth, and we're going to be successful, and blah, blah, blah. And all I could do was sit there thinking, it was kind of like, yeah, if only. If it were me, this is what would be happening to you right now. So it was kind of a wish fulfillment fantasy of if
catharsis, if you will.
Exactly. The analogy that always comes to my mind about it is kind of the Batman analogy. If I was Batman, this is what would be happening to him right now. was kind of. So we got done with this meeting, and I was actually managing the team at this point, and I basically told everybody to go home. Let's just go home, recover. We'll come back. But I stayed, and I cranked this thing. I just sat down and was like.
That was it. That was your way of. Yeah.
And then I shared it with everybody. When they came back to the office the next day, and they were like, "Oh." It's so short though that it doesn't really function as a short story in anything else. Mm-hmm. But it ended up becoming the prologue in another novel that I'm working on.
Oh, fascinating.
So it's got the dual purpose of, oh, well, you know, this act works as a standalone piece, but it actually sets up this other world in this other novel. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So, but that's where it came from, was kind of corporate wish fulfillment.
Right? Oh, I'm sure there is plenty of that out there that could be had. So, okay, well, I will turn the screen over to you here, and then we will move on with this one. So this is, go ahead. I'm on mute now.
Okay. So the title of this story is Aggressive Negotiations, from the Corporate Catharsis Anthology. Sebastian Cole was late. He glanced at the time displayed on his computer and winced slightly. His wife would not be happy, but he knew he could make the dinner party in plenty of time. Unlike most women like his wife, he did not need hours to primp and prepare for their social engagements. A quick refresh of his shave, slide into his suit, and he was ready. 15, maybe 20 minutes, tops. After all, he mused, what was the worst that could happen? Some other executive showing up at the party with the same tie? Shaking his head in silent amusement, he placed his fingers back on the keyboard and tried to squeeze in a few more minutes of work. He smiled the faint smile of a predator as he reviewed the terms of the agreement. His takeover of Pentacorp was proceeding precisely as he had planned. You oblivious fools, he silently chastised his adversaries. How could you not have seen this coming? There were only two types of businessmen in Cole's world, the hunter and the prey, the quick and the dead. Cole intended to always be the first. Cole continued typing, making final revisions to the contract, his fingers almost keeping time with the sound of the rain as it pelted the tinted glass windows around him. He glanced out through them for a moment, peering into the glimmering lights of the city, the raindrops glittering like liquid gems as they slid down the darkened glass. Cole smiled slightly. His reflection did the same. He wasn't looking too bad for a man pushing 40, he decided. His blonde hair, the color of Santa Cruz sand, was expertly coiffed. He turned his head slightly, examining the lean cut of his jawline, his even, although not quite square, chin. The tinted contact lenses he wore imparted a false sparkle to eyes fatigued by hours in front of a computer display and far too little sleep. Still quite the dashing figure, Cole decided. The toll taken by the long hours seemed barely noticeable. Definitely, to Cole's eyes, a still vigorous young man stared back at him. His faint, self-satisfied smile faded into a twisted grimace as he realized that he might have less time than he originally thought. With the rain coming down like that, traffic as he headed home, and later to the dinner party, was probably going to be a downright nightmare. Sighing with mild resignation, he saved the last revision of the contract, making certain that a copy had been saved on his secure cloud so that he could work on it later. Outside his glistening tower, the storm continued to beat down on the heart of Silicon Valley. Periodically, lightning cracked the sky. Cole, had he bothered to listen for it, would barely have heard another more muffled rumble from the thunder that followed, insulated as he was inside his glass and steel cocoon. One particularly bright burst, a sharp flash against the nearby Santa Cruz Mountains, did manage to catch his attention. He glanced up just as the lights in his office flickered once, twice, and then died. He started to call out for Janae, his assistant. Like almost all of his other employees, she had long since gone home to their other lives. Cole sat at his desk, still and softly lit by the muted glow of his notebook's computer screen. He sighed, grateful that it had switched over to its own battery when the building's power had failed. He released another long, slow breath, now more than a little irritated. Not only was the power outage inconvenient, even if fairly common this time of year in this weather, but it was almost guaranteed that he was going to get lectured by his wife. He groaned softly as he realized that, instead of the elevator, he would have to take the stairwell down 8 flights to the parking garage. Slumping slightly in resignation, he reached for his phone. Might as well get it over with, he thought peevishly, or started. He tapped the icon that would automatically dial his home number. It took him a moment to realize that his phone was silent. He peered at the service status on its small glowing display. No service. He sighed again, now thoroughly annoyed. He had paid extra to ensure that his phone would receive signals even inside the building. He was also vaguely puzzled, for it had always worked before, even in weather worse than this. The cosmos was definitely conspiring against him tonight, something simply not allowed in Cole's personal universe. He continued to sit there in the relative darkness for several moments, beginning to realize just how silent his surroundings had become. The rain continued its semi-rhythmic cadence against the windows, but he heard nothing else. No background sigh of the air conditioner, no hum from the various machines scattered throughout his office. A faint rustling noise from just outside his office door startled him, sounding much too loud at the now eerie silence. It must be Janae, he decided, come back for something she forgot. Although he realized that he had no idea how long ago she had actually left. He started to call out to her, then froze as he realized that the footfalls he now heard sounded much too heavy to be those of his assistant. And, Cole realized, there seemed to be too many of them. Without taking his eyes from the door, he raised his hand down toward the bottom drawer of his desk. Finding its handle solely by touch, he pulled the drawer open ever so slowly, biting his lower lip as it scraped slightly against the bottom frame of the desk. He paused, waiting to see if he'd been heard. Several moments passed, and, when there was no sign that any of the intruders were rushing through the door, he reached into the drawer, toward the back for the gun that he kept hidden there. He'd hoped it was loaded. It had been buried there for so long that he could not recall for certain. As his fingers brushed the gun's grip, the handle to the outer door rattled slightly. Cole watched as the handle slowly began to turn, mentally scolding himself for not having bothered to lock it, although he could not recall the last time he had done that, even when he was leaving for the night. With one hand, he started to lift the gun from the bottom of the drawer. His fingers, growing slick with perspiration, slipped on the handle at first and nearly dropped it. It was heavier than he remembered. He winced, imagining that the sound it would make if it crashed down into the shadowy depths of the drawer. Without any further warning from the rattling door handle, the outer door burst open. In the faint light cast by the city outside the windows, Cole could make out 3, possibly 4 dark figures framed by the doorway. They seemed in no hurry to enter the room, as if certain that there would be no one inside, or if someone was, they would be easy prey. Cole pulled the gun from the drawer, his courage growing with the weight of the weapon in his hand. Just try something, he silently challenged the intruders. You'll see what Sebastian Cole is like when cornered. It never occurred to him that it had never happened before, at least not since a certain playground in 2nd grade. He raised the gun. From behind him came an explosive crash louder than it should have been. It took him a moment to realize that the sound was much more than thunder, and that he could now hear the rain far too clearly. From his right ear, he heard a hoarse whisper like fine gravel. Don't move, Mr. Cole. A moment later, he felt the pressure of cool, oily metal against his jugular. Cole froze. His fingers went slack, the gun slipping from his perspiration-slipped fingers. It dripped back into the drawer with a sharp, wooden echo. He winced in fear, his breath catching, not certain whether he'd heard a gunshot follow the abrupt noise. The men at the doorway turned instantly toward the open office, their guns all aimed directly at him. If any of them fired, Cole knew that he was finished. A coarse chuckle sounded from behind him, close, but not as near as the first whisper. It's okay, boys. He's not going anywhere. Cole felt rather than saw his unseen assailant's attention turned toward him. Are you, Mr. Cole? Cole did not trust himself to speak, not even certain that he could. He managed to turn his head in the slightest shake, very conscious of the gun barrel still pressed beneath the corner of his jaw. He managed to swallow. It did not help. The dark figures shadowed against the doorway leading to the outer office appeared to ease off in their aggressive posture by at least lowering their weapons. Cole found himself relaxing slightly as well, as much as he could under the circumstances. At least he now only had one gun pointed in his direction. Some kind of small commotion seemed to be happening in the outer room. Something was happening out there. Cole tried to peer through the doorway into the dark room beyond, but could not make out anything but the three silhouetted figures moving about. Other than from moving his eyes, Cole remained absolutely still. The dark figures parted to permit someone to pass between them. In the dimly reflected light, Cole could tell that the newcomer was dressed in something other than the dark camouflage gear that all the others within his immediate field of vision wore. The new figure entered the room. It strode confidently, fearlessly, towards where Cole sat frozen. The pale glow still radiating from his computer screen effectively blinded Cole as the figure stepped forward. Squinting against the light, Cole could make out a dark-colored suit, well-tailored, but could not make out the face of the newcomer. "So, Sebastian," the figure said, "how does it feel to be the prey?" The question was followed by a soft chuckle, the tone of which chilled Cole. Cole recognized the voice of Gerhard Baxter's COO instantly. Like himself, Gerhard Baxter's CEO would never dirty his own hands directly. He turned his head slightly, noting that each of the other black-clad intruders had taken up a position in the corner of the room. Though they seemed at ease, Cole had little doubt that they would spring instantly into deadly action should the need arise. Lightning flared. In the reflection from a pane of ragged, shattered glass, Cole recognized the dark insignia on the upper sleeve of the intruders. "Soldiers!" Cole shouted silently. "How dare he!" "Harris, what's this all about?" The chuckle again. Cole tried not to shiver. Harris's soft laughter was echoed by the intruder at Cole's right ear. Cole saw Harris wave his hand towards Cole's unseen assailant. The pressure against his neck eased, then strong hands shoved him forward, indicating that he should stand. Cole involuntarily hesitated and, an instant later, felt the iron force of the weapon against his spine. Unbidden, visions of what might happen if the weapon were fired flashed through Cole's mind. Images of his vertebrae shattered into razor-sharp bone shards. He tried not to shudder. The still unseen gunman guided Cole towards the shattered window. Safety glass crunched beneath his leather-soled shoes. He stopped only a few steps from the edge of the window frame. The wind and rain whipped against him, the expensive carpet between his feet becoming a soggy mass. The pressure of the weapon against his spine did not ease. Cole tried not to look up or down or out, but felt compelled to, nonetheless. He remained motionless, at a loss for any action that would not lead to his immediate demise. Reflected in a dark pane of unbroken glass, Cole saw the reflection of the small, graying man staring back at him, a grin of triumph evident on his round face. "If it makes it any easier, Sebastian," Harris explained, sounding maddeningly casual as the soldier behind Cole nudged him one step closer toward the shattered window, "think of it as a hostile takeover." And that concludes Aggressive Negotiations from Corporate Catharsis.
All right. Gonna bring us back together here. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. We have several questions. Yes. So I'm just gonna skip right to those. And oh gosh,
yeah, what happened?
The time flew by today. I didn't even realize it was 2:55. So what I will say before I jump into the questions real quick, now is the time, audience members, that if you want to be entered to win a copy of It's Building Baby Brother, right? A hard copy of Building Baby Brother.
This is the last first edition I have, so this one has all the errors in it. So you're getting a really special one. This is the last one I have. First edition with all the mistakes.
First edition. Now is the time that you put your name into the comments so that we can put you up on the wheel of win. So please comment your name right now, and then we will take the questions to give people time to put their name. So let's go back here and see what we've got, because I know that there were several. Now there was a couple. Let's see. I have this one from Philip K. Booker. Since you have a security system background, how does that influence your voice or style?
Well, I have to be perfectly honest. This was completed and written and done before I started that job. So it actually had no impact on this particular book. But it does actually factor profoundly into the next two.
So at first, nothing.
At first, nothing,
and
I wasn't working for that company. I was working for another large corporation that makes consumer PC products.
This is definitely, you've got the technical stuff down, don't you? Let's see. We have from Gunther, what other series have you read that ultimately inspired your writings, and how? It's going to be a short list. You've only been writing since you were 17, right?
Yeah, actually, I have to be honest. I've my influences, my inspiration actually comes from a multiple of different areas. Certainly Heinlein was one of the first, I want to write like him. I want to do books like him. I want to write books like him. Asimov was, of course, a profound impact. But there's, and that probably is more prone to the books like this that helps to write those. But I'm also really fond of writers who also kind of do what I think of as the other side of the fence. Mm-hmm. So Spider Robinson. I really like Tom Robbins. I don't know how many people are familiar with him.
I am not personally.
I'm completely gapping on his most famous book. Even Cowgirls Get the Blues, Jitterbug Perfume.
I have heard actually.
He's not a science fiction fantasy author. He's more mainstream, but he has a way with language that just humbles me because it's like I could never pull this off. But I'm trying to think of authors that every time a book would come out, okay, here's my allowance. I'm far from my bookshelf. Peter Beagle.
Yeah.
Peter Beagle. Harlan Ellison was a big influence back when I was in my 20s.
I have a funny story about Harlan Ellison. It's not even my story. It's just a friend of mine that had an experience with him from Norwestcon, actually, up here in the Northwest, years and years and years ago. And I'm not going to tell it to you today. Man. But every time I hear Harlan Ellison's name, I think of this story, which was pretty funny. So I don't know. Sometimes it's a small world, right? So.
Trying to think. I don't have my bookshelf, unfortunately, within Frank Herbert. I always wanted to write a book like Dune.
Yeah. Dune is a good book.
One of my goals in my space opera series is to have a romance between the two of the main characters that is as good as the one between Paul and Channing and Leto and Jessica.
Yes.
That's kind of like one of my goals.
I think I like the Leto Jessica romance better than the Paul and Channing, to be honest.
I do too, but I think it's my sensibility to that evolved as I got older. It's kind of what I call the Star Trek sensibility. I always wanted to be Kirk when I was younger, and then when I got older, I said, no, it's all about Spock.
Okay, so here's one last one. Do you find yourself writing your characters with the voices of your friends and family built into them? And if so, who? And do they know that once they are reading your book? Like, can they recognize themselves?
Yes.
That's it? Just yes? I was like, well, this could be a question that gets him in trouble. What if they don't know, but he does do that?
They know. Yes, because and actually my son's actual name is Josh, so I put his name in here.
Oh, that's cool.
It's going to be his, his book.
Right.
Yes, I do, and actually, if not my family, it's definitely the voice of other people that may be influenced on it. Like the CEO in this book was totally patterned after a CEO at another company that I will not.
Right. The CEO who shall not be named.
But if those who work with me at the time know exactly who I'm talking about, they know exactly who I'm talking. There's another fantasy series that I'm working on, co-writing with somebody that hopefully will see the light of day sometime, called Fleeing the Red Queen's Rage. And the Red Queen is based on someone we used to report to at a company. And it's kind of a cathartic story again, but mannerisms.
Real battle axe, huh?
That person. Just, yeah. So often, yeah, characters and people will show up. I like to, one of the things I'll often do, like in the Space Opera series, is supporting crew, background crew, end up, friends and coworkers or whatever, end up, so-and-so, oh, look, it's Lieutenant so-and-so in engineering that's, actually my, coworker.
Your coworker a couple cubes over.
Yeah, exactly. So, they kind of like that. They get a kick out of that.
Do you ever do, sometimes when people have Kickstarters, they will sell a character in the book, right? Like you can you'll name after somebody or,
I have thought about doing that, but I think I need to actually show before I would do that, I actually need to show a progression, getting the books out there so I can do it.
Right.
But I do know that Vanessa McLaren-Ray, who you had on a couple of weeks ago, she did that as not as a Kickstarter, but as an auction. I think I'm going to get it wrong. I apologize, Vanessa, but I think it was at one of the Baycon virtual things. She had done an auction where she would put a character in the book named after you, and you.
That's kind of fun. I like that. Okay, well, so with that said, this is your last chance, everybody. I'm going to pull up the wheel here and get all of the names on it. So if you want to be entered to win a hard copy, first edition book, the Building Baby Brother, the first one that we read today. Yes, there it is. Then now is the time. Get your name in there. And I'm going to find the wheel right now. And then we will get all the names on there. Just to let you guys know how this works. I put all of the names on here. All of our Patreon patrons are automatically entered. You can get another entry as well by putting your name into the comments, which is what I'm telling you guys to do. And then our wheel here will select 50 people from this list, which is a giant list. So, and then we spin. So it's always good to get that little extra boost there because that helps you actually make the cut to get on the wheel. Let's see. So I'm pulling it up. Where's our wheel? Here we go. And here you can see these are the names. And do we have any last stragglers? I know that kind of gotta go and look at some of the. I have Holly. Okay, let me get her on there. And oh, I can spell. Okay, and I see no more names out there. So with that, then we will go ahead and spin the wheel. Here are the 50 names and spin. Congratulations, Jankira. You have won today's drawing for the book. Huzzah! Happy Friday to you, right? So after the show, I will.
Ah.
Oh, well, it's good to know that you already have the book. That's a good reason to not put your name. Yeah. So after the show.
Review. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, leave a review. Yes. That is always very important. There we go. Yes. After the show, we will get all that information and the connections and everything made. So I think with that said, it kind of brings us around to the end of the show. Now, there was one more thing that I told you I would remember to say. That right now, all of I just don't know which website it is on. Is it on the Paper Angel Press? You have all digital editions of the stories are 99 cents this weekend.
Just this one right now.
Oh, just that. Oh, okay.
Yeah. The other one's for just Black Friday, Cyber.
Gotcha.
But I left this one up just for this event.
Oh, yay. Thank you. So, yes. So 99 cents digital version, you guys. You can go check it out. One last thing that I always like to say to everybody. First, Stephen, do you have anything you would like to say before we let you go?
Okay. So thank you very much for allowing me to be on here. I had a great time. I hope everybody enjoyed it. 99 cents, the digital editions on Amazon and Kindle, Kobo, and all those places. The audio edition, read by a real narrator. Shout out to fantastic narrator Jeff Ream. It will be available any day now.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Any day now. We were hoping it would be ready today, but it's still not up for sale. But any day now. So if you're an audiobook person and you want to hear it read by a professional, watch. It'll be in the usual places, but and
people can of course find all your information to like, subscribe, buy. That is in the low bar and in the ticker. So it will stay up after the show indefinitely, as long as the show is up, which will be a long time because I don't take them down. So yes, the last thing I always like to say, everybody, is if you do go buy the books, please leave the reviews. They are very important to indie authors. So, and then that means we are on Friday, and Handmade Home Shopping is our next show on Sunday. Please also sign up for VirtYULE and get, at least at a minimum, a free holiday card from us here at Fae Productions. That is the link right there, also in the low bar, conveniently for your use. And with that said, then I think that's everything, and we shall bid you all adieu. Like, subscribe, and go give everybody all the follows. Have a happy Friday and a good coming weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.